Lost a giant of the Australian television world. You'll know him as Paul Hogan's dopey sidekick Strop. But John Cornell was a creative genius who steered Hoag's career, masterminded World Series cricket, and was a pioneer producer on A Current Affair.
You know, we never worked, we just had a good time.
He was the man who created Hoag's.
Some caviar, yeah?
Caviar.
He was the only person that saw what to do with me. And we was just hit it off straight away, instant brothers. He always had more faith in me than I did.
Welcome to A Current Affair.
John Cornell was a producer here at A Current Affair. In the early 1970s, he was commissioned to find a frontman for a regular comedy spot to lighten up our show. That man was a rigger on the Sydney Harbour Bridge and would come in after work to record his weekly spots.
Here's a caper for getting into the races. Now watch this. Here's the gateman guarding the gate where you get out, see? Now always walk backwards and they're never too sure which way you're going then. Sidling along like this, mate. Oh, excuse me, mate, just coming out. There. Done all me down the first race, you know. Might as well go home. Hello. Another quid here? Oh, I might as well go back inside and see if I can invest that. That's the way Oak beats inflation.
Cornell left ACA to become Hogan's manager.
I've never had a headache in my life, mate.
That figures.
And sidekick.
When you tell me I had that on?
I couldn't tell the difference, mate.
Playing Strop, the dim-witted, dinky-die surf lifesaver.
And a oyster, mate.
So I was actually working on a quiz program when I met John and commuting from Melbourne to Sydney to record it. And if I hadn't have been doing that, perhaps I wouldn't have met him because I may not have been in Sydney at the pub when I ran into John Cornell.
John Cornell had an eye for talent and beauty.
I can get by without teeny top. I can get by without much of a brain. I can get by without my legs.
He cast that girl he met in the pub in most Paul Hogan shows.
Charmed.
Right.
Yes, it was a little sexist, but they were different times. Delvine Delaney and John Cornell married and were inseparable. Heavens, they even did adverts together.
Chicken breasts in almonds and white wine.
How did you know? Oh, okay. What kind of chicken is it?
White leghorn.
How did you know that?
There's a little white feather sticking out of its leg.
But Cornell was more than a comic and producer. He was a brilliant businessman. John worked closely with Kerry Packer setting up World Series cricket. He recruited players from around the globe, and cricketers' wages went from pittance to princely.
2 beers, all right? One for me, one for me mate.
But even bigger things were to come. From the small screen to the big one, Cornell and Hogan co-wrote Crocodile Dundee, Australia's highest grossing film.
Crocodile Dundee is the biggest foreign movie in the history of movies. It's the biggest movie in the world ever made outside of a major studio.
In Hollywood.
In Hollywood.
They did it again with the successful 1988 sequel, making a couple of blokes from down under a mozza.
Big Beckies. Isn't it fun talking in hundreds of millions, mate? I love it.
He bought a good slice of Byron Bay, built the local pub for $9 million, sold it later for $65 million. Life was good, but like many others at their peak, Parkinson's disease robbed him of a normal existence.
In the past, he had trouble walking, he had trouble interacting with people, he had trouble just doing things that everyone takes for granted.
He always kept low-key about it because he didn't want to become the Parkinson's guy, you know, like Michael J. Fox did. He came down with me at the last time I got an award, but mostly he doesn't want to get out in public and be gawked at, you know. And Delvine's magic. She's the ever-ready bunny. She never stops and looks after him.
We've been together 44 years, so to watch Parkinson's disease steal his life is sad, confronting and challenging. More for him.
A brilliant medical professor gave him some respite with deep brain stimulation.
Mr. Cornell responded very quickly to the treatment. We felt that was a good sign that we're in the right spot in his brain, and he had relief of his symptoms almost immediately.
Asked what he'd like to do after his surgery, he said simply, "I'd like to go for a walk with my wife." Only very recently, his beloved Delvine told us.
You know, Corny's good days, bad days, like anyone who's almost 80. But his spirits are really high and he's still a loving husband.
Last we saw of him was at the Brunswick Hotel in northern New South Wales, where he and the band were back together briefly, filming an ad to raise money for a bush firefighters relief fund. A brilliant man, leaving behind a legacy of memories, inspiration that impossible things could be done, and laughs. Thank you, Strop.
He leaves a giant hole, and our thoughts are with John's family and his many great mates.